Joe, do you think our earlier podcasting selves could carry the current podcast that we do?
Um, to a degree, yes, because in our earlier podcasting selves, we definitely recorded a lot more during those times. When we were pushing out like an episode every week, plus like and those episodes were like a hefty like hour and 30 to 40 minutes. Plus we do like a little second like half hour long episode each week. So yeah, I think we could do it, as in like, oh yeah, we can handle the schedule. But as far as like, could we do it as well? I don't know. I think we've gotten better over the years.
See, the question for those of you who are wondering, and those of you who watched on YouTube and see the title card, it might be a little bit easier to see where we're kind of taking this one. But there's a lot of people out there that have learned to appreciate Hayden Christensen over time. Maybe not so much when his works originally came out. And Joe, I'm not going to be as bold as to say that our early podcasting days were, young Hayden Christensen trying to figure himself out. But yeah, maybe there's some of that. I do remember, Joe, cutting room floor many times. You were shouting out, "You turned her against me," and we just didn't know what that was all about. So,
Yeah, and then when you kept trying to insist that no, it was my ex-girlfriend who was evil, I said, well, in my mind, you're the ones who are evil. There was just lots of adjusting and bad things going on in those early podcasting days. So we've grown.
Lots of negativity around sand, which in the moment you don't even think about, but later on it's like, man, we talked about sand a lot and how it gets everywhere.
Way too much. Focused way too much on sand and bits. Not to mention the robot sex. Way too focused on that for a whole episode.
In this case, Joe, I am comfortable finally getting to watch a movie for mostly entertainment value on this podcast, and not so much because we're just looking to make fun of it and hope for clicks. I'm kidding, by the way.
If anything's in clicks, I don't think it's Jumper.
No, yeah, I was going to say, if we're trying to go for what the people want, we're probably not hitting the mark on this one. But
little off base, but hey, still having fun.
Hey, 2008 happened, and so did a movie called Jumper, starring Hayden Christensen, who back then, I mean, if you saw his name on the title card, asses were not necessarily in seats. This movie, though, I do feel like, I felt like people did show up to this one. Like, we had that window in early 2000s. We're hitting the 2010s, where you had these like action movies that weren't starring, the Liam Neesons of the world. They weren't starring these people who were like later in their careers and were trying to anchor these things. No, you had a lot of these like young adult action films coming out. I think there was like I Am Number 3 was like another one kind of like this. And there were just some of these movies that star power was not carrying them anywhere.
No, and it's funny you should mention that, because when you're talking about kind of like these, almost want to say like teen/tween like heartthrobs just being put into like thrust into action movie positions, this is like kind of the start of that Twilight era too, right? Because like shortly after this, which coincidentally, one thing I completely forgot about this movie is that Kristen Stewart is in it. Yeah. She's got 3 lines, but she's there. And then, Twilight after this. So, yeah, or even before. I think Twilight may have been before this, because I think that was maybe 2007.
I mean, it was damn close.
It's right there. Just still too hopped up on Evanescence at this point in time to really keep too many things straight. But it was all just too much fun. But yeah, no, it just showed this fun time in Hollywood, right, where they're still kind of, taking chances on different ideas. It's not all reboots at this point in time. Sure, you have them. Like, this is when, the Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy gets made, is during this time, so Batman's getting his second life. Superman gets a second wind with Superman Returns. So DC's trying some reboots there. Some did better than others. So it was a time where it's like that wasn't everything though. Like we'd left Indiana Jones in the past. The Transformers had made their way back to the limelight during this time. But there's still this like, hey, let's take something that may have been a really good book and turn it into a movie, or maybe it was just a book that maybe no one read but we think is good, and make it into a movie. And let's see if it draws people in. And what's a good way to do that too? Put young, attractive people in the movie and hope for the best.
To your point, I mean, I don't think I ever heard a single person talk about 1992's Stephen Gould novel Jumper. Not something that was ever, in my mind up to this point in time. And oddly enough, Joe, it's funny when you read about the book, because we covered, the Prestige several years ago, and talking about how, that book was adapted somewhat faithfully for a majority of the film, and then there were some little tweaks and everything that happened along the way. Well, that didn't happen here, where, we've got David S. Goyer, who some cringe when they hear his name. I don't really hate the guy so much, because, Joe, to your point, he worked on the Dark Knight trilogy. He also threw his weight behind Blade, although that's not the one we probably want to use to advertise his name a whole lot. But David S. Goyer, when he's adapting this and going like, yeah, how can we do this? How can we make this this book look really good? It's like, no, that's not what he did. He went, you know what? We're going to take concepts of the book, but then really make this cinematic as much as we can. And the same thing goes for director Doug Liman, who, frankly, I love his work behind, Edge of Tomorrow. We get the Bourne Identity floating out there, So it's like, I do feel like the people that were involved in the creative side of this, maybe we were just a few years removed from them being at their peak, but I don't know, man. The building blocks should have been there.
I mean, yeah, they definitely should have been here. And I'd say this is when we were bringing up the 1992 novel. I could say this is definitely one of those cases where no one argues if the book or the movie was better, because no one knew the book was there. And the movie was like, well, we're also trying to forget that the movie was there. I think a lot of people. I'm not one of them. I didn't hate this movie. More on that later. But you're right. Like, this did have a really good, I was going to say cast of characters, and I don't think there's anything terribly wrong with the casting in this movie, but the building blocks there, right? Writing, screenplay, direction, plus, you've got some, at least, I'd say 3 pretty recognizable names in this movie. It is very much that, I think 2013 to 2015, LA Lakers, where you had all of the building blocks there, and it should have been, just a knockout. And then they just all fucking hated each other and couldn't. I don't know if they made it to the playoffs those seasons. And if they did, they didn't make it as far as they should have with the guys that they had on it. And I think that's a bit of kind of what we had here. Is we had a lot of really good pieces that just couldn't quite put the whole idea together in a way that just made it the lights out hit that it probably should have been.
It definitely feels like you turn your hat backwards, and then say you need more training, because that's what it kind of feels like for Hayden Christensen to an extent. Obviously, the fans nowadays were the kids that, didn't hate him, and their voices finally became louder than the adults that did. Clearly, back then, we can't say that this was necessarily the acting performance that turned the ship around. But either way, he's doing what he can. Jamie Bell, who I feel like was, I wouldn't say stunted, but man, he's not a bad actor. He's just not in films that give him enough credit, and we're going to avoid anything that mentions fantastic, because that's just rife for putting that meme where, say that again, don't go near that. But
no.
Rachel Bilson, another example of an actor who, she doesn't have to do much in this film. I mean, obviously she's meant to be the love interest, and there's not really a ton there to develop her character, which is she's not the only one, but not much for her to do in this movie. And so you kind of feel bad for these younger actors. It's like, I don't know, they just didn't get a whole lot of recognition for this kind of film.
I would agree. And again, to Rachel Bilson's credit, I would like to highlight and underline Mark's Mark's critique of this part of the movie is that there wasn't much for her to do. There wasn't it wasn't written for her to do much other than just to be the love interest who's kept on the peripheral, and then of course gets upset when obviously things are being kept from her. And to her credit, at no point in this movie is she ever like annoying or like unconvincing of that role. At no point do you ever feel like, oh girl, you should probably cut this guy some slack. It's like, no, like she probably deserves not be jerked around so goddamn much. When you see what's so if you haven't seen this movie and you do watch it, there's no complaint over how Rachel Bilson does this. It is again just the writing's not there to really make her character much more to do with other than some atypical role. So it did a great job, did what she could with it, made some money, met the future father of one of her children in this movie.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I was gonna say that's a Doug Liman commonality between this and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He's bringing actors together, but he's also bringing their genitalia together, because that happened with Brad Pitt as well, and Angelina Jolie. So it's like something's happening. When he brings that intimacy coordinator in, there's something going on there. Where it's like. It's like, I know you guys are told to be acting here, but really give it what you got,
Yeah, and like we like to cast off of chemistry, and we mean chemistry. Like it's really got to work here. And looking a little more at this cast, outside of other people, when I say like recognizable names at this point, the antagonist of the movie is one Samuel L. Jackson. Very, very well known, obviously.
Channeling his inner Cisco for this movie, by the way, with the white hair, silver hair thing going on. I mean, iconic and ridiculous.
A little bit. Like, it's like, I mean, I don't hate it on him. But any second, he could have talked about how much he liked thongs. Maybe even proclaimed it, musically. But actually, like, when you think of, like, kind of, like, parallels that were kind of here, with the fact that he's from some like religious zealot organization, it kind of feels like the assassin a little bit in Serenity. So it's a little bit of that, but
less
I would
redeeming,
say,
less redeeming,
less redeeming, because definitely like with the assassin, you get the feels like, no, this is my job, and I also kind of believe in what I'm doing, but mostly this is my job, but I just happen to be good at it. With Samuel L. Jackson, like, no, he wants to kill people. He really thinks the people he's killing aren't human and are horrible, and that only God should be able to do what they do. So he's very against everything that is them.
Yeah, and you know what? He represents, Samuel L. Jackson, one of the few actors that I think could carry a traditional film, but that's not what's being asked of him here, because he has surprisingly very little screen time. The same thing goes for the lovely Diane Lane, who we celebrate on this podcast as being part of the original Dredd, Judge Dredd. But she plays Hayden Christensen's mother, character of Mary Rice. But when you talk about redemption, though, we got Michael Rooker, who plays the character of William Rice, who is the father of David, or Davy as they call him. And man, I feel like of all the characters in this movie, even outside of the main characters, that one dude got more redemption and story progression than anybody else in this movie did. And he has he gets like maybe a minute if you condense it all together. It's nuts, but it's like, yeah, holy crap, Michael Rooker is in a movie, and it's like he's not attached to James Gunn for once. Holy crap, that actually happened.
And he's like not a dick like he is in The Walking Dead. He is, I don't know, and this is again like where it's it's kind of got that the Wayne's World like thing to it, where it's like, it's a small part, but can't we do better than this? And then you bring in someone who's really good at acting, and they get 5 seconds of screen time. Because with Michael Rooker in this, like, you can tell, like, the man acts, and he acted the hell out of this tiny role, which again, when I mean tiny, it is literally like an opening crawl with no lines, and then one scene after that, done. And the whole thing that you see him do this, the whole time you see him on screen, it is 100% believable. that he's upset with where he is in life. He's hurt by basically everyone around him, and he can feel it. But at the same time, he's not a like even though like it looks like he has every reason to be awful and a bad person. He refuses. He won't do it because he's not that kind of guy. And it's just I'm not gonna say like a master class of acting or anything by any means. But again, it's like it's a small part, but it's not a small role. And he acts the hell out of it.
It's well set up, and we might as well get into it a little bit here because the young Hayden Christensen, who plays Davy Rice, this is a character who's getting bullied. His mother disappeared at a very young age in his life, and so we kind of start this off with him being in school, and things aren't really all that great for him. He's pining for the the future love of his life and everything, by Millie, of course, her name, and for me, this very familiar story. I mean, I went through so many different public school systems that I get it. People don't like you. Okay, it's some of it could be your fault, some of it may not be your fault. Whatever, kids hate kids. Whatever, this stuff happens. But yeah, so Davy is from a quote unquote kind of broken home situation, and that's why I think the growth of William Rice is so important, yet completely underutilized. Something we're not really focused on, but. It is interesting to see that this movie, Joe, despite being a book in 1992, it does get into how the characters of these jumpers, these people who can literally teleport across the planet into different places, their powers in being activated are very similar to the Marvel universe and how stress can induce the mutation. And so it's interesting how Davy gives this gift to Millie, this snow globe, and this aptly named bully by the name of Mark, by the way, because all Marks are assholes. This is established. Throws the snow globe into the water, and then boom, dude jumps in after it and almost loses his life. But what did you think about that, Joe? Because I'm pointing at the TV going like, man, this guy must have been a Marvel fan.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of that. I don't want to say like like they fell into like what has to be done with almost basically every hero and every story is they're either like in like a full orphan or partially an orphan, and then something terrible has to happen that makes them realize like kind of who they are or who they're becoming, whether it is a superhero ability or just like the need to step up and actually do something to show that they are, in fact, a good person. So it's one where it's, I don't know, you could maybe say a tired trope, but at the same time also kind of comforting and kind of familiar, right? It's the idea that you can use similar elements and sometimes even roughly the same storyline, and as long as you do it like different enough, no one's mad about it. Right? It's like how, like, basically Avatar was Pocahontas, even though we were a little mad about that one. But at least it was done creatively, and it made enough people happy, and not everyone was too mad about it. The most disappointing thing of all from that movie was the fact that they, multi-million-dollar production, and they used papyrus as the text for the font, for that thing. Like, what are you doing? You have the money to make your own font, or at least use something better. But what I will digress with that for and go back to the movie we're actually talking about. When we're talking about like comfort things that movies do, this does roll into that next, right? Where after we have our young hero is put into a stressful scenario, we've got the background of his life, he discovers he has powers, and the next thing that we get is kind of a training montage of him, right? Of him learning how to use his powers to show that he didn't just have instant control of them and he could go into just doing whatever he wanted. There's lots of mistakes in teleporting himself directly into, like, not into a tree, most like he ran into a tree with it. And a lot of mistakes were made until he finally took like a really big jump, got it to work well, and then went big with it. And of course, this is, I think, probably the most realistic part of the whole movie is as soon as you figure out you just need to look at something and you can teleport there once, Mark, what does this guy go and do?
Felonies. Starts committing felonies immediately.
Crime. Just crime left and right. Mm-hmm.
What I love about that, though, this is a hilarious point that you made, Joe, is that, yes, he immediately decides, I need to break the law as quickly and as easily as I can. But to your point, man, when he has to see the place that he teleports to, he obviously knows he wants to target a bank vault, but he actually accidentally jumps to the bathroom that he claimed he had to go to get, so it was funny because it's like, yeah, he's still a kid, and he accidentally jumps into the bathroom first, and it's like, shit, nope, gotta get to the vault, and then he does it. So that was funny because, yeah, you don't think about it much because it is a fairly quick sequence, but yeah, this is a kid trying to figure his newfound talents out. So yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of that part.
Yep. And then of course breaks the only agreement that he has with his landlord, and that's no weird stuff. Mm-hmm. Which I think really he should probably define weird stuff more. Like, does he mean drugs? Does he mean putting on his own off-Broadway show? One man in his apartment? Little odd, little weird, bit of a risk. Or learn my superpowers in my apartment. Yeah,
like
not
literally
clear
jumping a police motorcycle into his apartment for some reason, because you don't actually see him doing that. It just suddenly shows the police bike just in there. And it's like, dude, if your landlord walks by and you accidentally have your door open one time, like, you're gonna get kicked out of there, dude. Come on, like, let's pick smaller stuff. But I feel like it was a wasted opportunity for the landlord to have a daughter who makes desserts, for this character, and then
I say my mind went to Spider-Man 2 right away. Like, I was really hoping we would get someone who's just that dedicated to getting his fucking rent on time. But granted, rent was an issue until you hit one bank really good and you just keep doing it, and eventually you can pay your rent pretty easily, and you do attract some unwanted attention. Where we enter Samuel L. Jackson.
I was going to call him Siskouel L. Jackson, showing up there. Mr. Roland Cox, who originally was actually named Brian Cox in the book, and they just didn't want to have confusion because, Brian Cox is obviously an actor, an award-winning actor. And so they're like, yep, we can't have that confusion happen. But this is one of the few times, Joe, where we do get a reference to the book, because Roland does claim to be with the NSA, and of course he's not actually with the NSA. I think he fakes being with like every major criminal investigation unit from the bottom up. But yeah, the NSA was who was originally tracking down the jumpers in the book itself. Yeah, Roland, once again, he's not a good dude, man. I mean,
no.
he starts tracking down Hayden Christensen, Davey, and he continues to do this for years because, of course, they lose track of him. And what does he do next? He goes and stabs an Asian man in the chest, which, Joe, I sat there and I was just like, you know what? You've already established that marks are assholes in this movie, and now you're literally killing overweight Asian people. I feel like this was a personal attack for me. I just have to say it.
I mean, I had no idea that our equivalent of the 2013 Lakers would have this out for you, Mark. Considering you're not a big basketball person, you're not throwing hate their way. You don't really care. You let them do their thing. But no, they just won't let you have anything. They got to go ahead and kill some on-screen equivalent of Mark. That's just not fair.
Seriously, it felt personal. But at the same time, anybody who plunges, like a 12-inch knife right into the middle of someone's chest, like, you're not even sure if the heart is actually there, sir. That may not be a killing blow. That's just going to be a very...
It felt real.
This hurts a fucking lot type of blow there.
Yeah.
But regardless, he is very brutal, and I'm actually happy that for once we do actually have, Joe, as we've talked about this concept many times, we just have an evil as hell person. We don't have a whole lot of these internal monologues. We just get, the little bits of why I'm doing this. And hey, you know what? The early 2000s, they did it well. I think they did make sure that for those watching at home, it's like, yeah, guys, this is the good guy. This is the bad guy. We're not going to get into that gray area where we keep having all this nuance,
And honestly, as someone who's, we've consumed a lot of media over the years, I'm kind of over the is he really the bad guy sort of thing. It was fun for a while, but now when everyone's doing it, it's not shocking anymore. It's not different. It's not it's not fun. It's like, oh well, I guess someone shouldn't have fucking, I don't know, been mean to him that one time. I was gonna say kill his dog, but that's what makes John Wick, and that was a pretty great movie. So we're not going to go there. But when we are going into Roland as a character, and we've mentioned he's been a part of or he claimed to be a part of every intelligence agency the United States had to offer. He really is a part of a group called the Paladins, which if you play some Dungeons and Dragons or any role playing, a paladin is, kind of a religious warrior. So it kind of plays into his character that much more. He is a true believer. He really thinks what he's doing is the right thing, and that who he's going after is they are inherently evil and will always just be evil. There's no turning them. There's no such thing as a good monster sort of thing in his mind. So, and of course we do not get that explanation until we meet another supporting cast member. So until we see Griffin, and Griffin is this introduction to the larger world here, over saying hey, we're jumpers, they're paladins. Paladins kill jumpers, therefore I kill paladins, is this very quick explanation. So we start getting into a little more of the thick of it, and by the time we get there, we already have this Hayden Christensen, who's or the David Rice, who has risen to the peak of his humanity. Right? He has this apartment in New York City. It's just filled with money and little gold bars, and anything he liked, he's just been jumping in there, which of course is hints to things coming later in the movie over just exactly what can he do with his power, because he went from grabbing a few bags of money, and then you're up there and he's got jet skis and motorcycles and all of these things that he can just teleport right up there, until turns out he got a little too greedy and just went for that, just went too close to the sun until Samuel Jackson shows up.
And you know what? I think this is one of those cinema sins that also qualifies as, literary to cinematic sins, because in the book, Davy ends up using like a camcorder to show where his jump points are. That's what they call where they end up, going to across the world. They're quote unquote jump points. And so he would use a camcorder so that he could remember where he went, but then still conceal the majority of it from people. Because in the book, it's he actually was a little bit smarter about how he concealed his whereabouts. Whereas they took a different route for the movie and went, we want to make the be photographs of literally everything. And so clearly this guy does not have a future in politics, because as we know, the more evidence you have, the harder things are going to get for you.
You can't have a paper trail like that, especially when your entire apartment is the paper trail.
I mean, hey, the apartment's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But when you start to look at that and then Roland shows up, I mean, it's like, yep, we literally have everything on you. We might as well just spare each other the trouble. And
yeah.
But to your point, Joe, about Griffin for a moment, go back to him. Griffin represents a part of this movie and what was supposed to be a larger franchise that just really never got a chance to take off, because Griffin was the subject of the Jumper video game, and they also had him be the subject of a graphic novel tie-in, very similar to what Star Trek did when they connected the Kelvinverse with the Next Generation and trying to fill in all that gap. And so Griffin ended up having a history already with Roland. He's met him before. Roland actually wants to use him to get to Davy. And so these are all things that you just don't know. None of this stuff is established. And frankly, to your point about Griffin just killing paladins, it feels like there is a little bit about that. Maybe a little extreme, because, I mean, I don't know anybody who just decided to start a civil war just because of nothing. Usually there's a little bit of family history in there. But,
and I think that's where a little bit of the overall large criticism for this movie comes in, is that this is kind of like an All Rise playlist that you have at a party, and there's no hey, a nice subtle thing to get the party going, and then you get it really, really big, but then after a few hours it's time that you want to go to bed, you want people out of your house, so you start bringing some things down with some closing time and a few other songs, all right, we're going to wrap this thing up. No, this guy is just Bon Jovi all night. And not that I'm saying I'm a huge Bon Jovi person, but Bon Jovi just parties. And that's what this does. It's all gas. Like, there is no letting up on anything. It is just plot point, plot point, plot point. And introduce new thing, give us a new character. Let's see the power do something different. Let's see the love interest come back. Let's see some stress on the love interest. Let's see the love interest, like, come back. Let's see some more stress on the love interest. All of it is happening at the same time. And it's hard to really process any one thing at a time because of how much is going on.
It's the curse of a Hayden Christensen non-Star Wars related movie, which is most of the time they're like 90 minutes. Okay, like whoever created these Hayden Christensen movies, it's like they knew they only had so much film that they could actually use, and they just went for it. And I'm not going to say he's like the worst part of this film, but you gotta really appreciate that. You know, this is like a lot of foods they serve here in Wisconsin, where they always say, "Yeah, that's an acquired taste." And his early acting,
bad.
Joe.
You mean bad.
We're trying to say it's bad, but we can't say it's bad, okay? And that's truly what a lot of the Jumper film kind of represents, but it's not nearly as exaggerated bad. You know, like Tommy Wiseau, anything he's attached to, we know is going to be just awesomely bad. But I feel like this is like the NFC North of, you know, action films from this era, where it's like, yeah, there's going to be some talent, but it's not going to get the job fully done. That's just the way it goes. And for most of this movie, which once again, Joe and I aren't big fans of, like, giving you pound for pound everything that happens. It's just, it feels like a movie that's full of stunted growth. And I mean, Joe, people, like, critics absolutely hated this movie. Like, if there was a way for you to add more stars just to give less in the rating, they would have done it for this. And I mean, why do you think people dislike this movie? For all the reasons we've already called out, like, what else is there to hate about this?
I think it's because it was, from start to finish, again, pretty predictable, because it does rely on a lot of those, like we said, those known tropes, those things that are kind of comfortable to have in a movie, but it's comfortable to have, like, one of them, not all of them. It's the exact opposite of what I would use from a similar time, maybe a little newer than this movie. Actually, again, really fuzzy with all the movies in this area. Like when you look at, like, Real Steel as a movie, which I will always die on the hill that I love that movie. And it's a movie that is better than what anyone gave credit for, because of what it does so well. It will introduce a trope, and then it'll be like, hey, it's on a like, you know, little T-ball thing right here for you to hit, and then suddenly Randy Johnson comes in and fucking throws a curveball at you and kills a bird in the process, and just like throws the trope out.
Pretty sure that was a slider, but still, I get it.
Probably
you're making a good point, though.
Yeah. So whereas this movie, it's like, here's the trope on the tee, and it lets you hit off the tee every single time. And then again, like, sometimes you go with a younger cast, like you said, like we'll say, like, people giving young Hayden Christensen a lot of shit from this movie, like, it's a lot of it is because, again, he's still, like, relatively new to being an actor at this large of a stage in Hollywood, so that's an issue. A lot of the other, again, the main cast, primarily young, with the only main cast member that is older is Samuel L. Jackson, and he's trying to kill all the young people. So, you know, I think that's the hardest part for people to enjoy about the movie, is the young acting with all the predictability that you have in this movie from the get-go.
See, now, this is one of those things about this movie in particular that I never could quite figure out, because I always kind of connected the fates of Jumper to that of Van Helsing. And Van Helsing, of course, was in 2004, so it's a couple years previous to this. But I do feel like a lot of these, you know, somewhat conceptual pre-MCU films, right? They all kind of got condensed into this "we're not quite ready for it yet"ism type of thing, or not quite ready for it yet syndrome type of thing. Because they did plan for Jumper to be a trilogy, in a sense. They had all this stuff that they were building. I mean, when you look at the outlines of this, the Paladins, this eternal struggle for who knows how long, I mean, a lot of these things were pretty much the foundation of the Assassin's Creed franchise. You know, these feuding factions for, you know, who God knows who long or how long. And so it's like it's not stuff that couldn't work. I really do think it's the time frame. And what further doesn't make sense for this, Joe, I will pull this out of the hat. We're going to go back to like season 1 things, okay? Now, in 2008, Joe, this was an $85 million budgeted movie that performed $225 million at the box office.
That seems fine.
Most conventional math, a first film that does that is probably going to get you a sequel.
Yeah.
But when we adjusted for inflation, because we used to like to do that. A couple episodes ago, I said we're not going to do that anymore. Nope, bring it back. That would equate to $127 million in 2025 dollars, with a $338.2 million box office performance. Further, not making a whole lot of sense to me.
No, that should be a win. That should be a hit right there. Because I feel like films that have done worse have gotten sequels than that. So it's, I don't know, maybe it's one of those things where like maybe the industry understood what it was back then. And it was like, hey, we knew that the hype for the movie was real. We did a lot of work to really promote that opening weekend. We got a lot of money off of that. And then there was a little bit of like, is it really that bad? I should see for myself. Because back then, that was a little more affordable to really take that gamble at a movie. Is it really that bad? I'll see for myself. I'll go there. I will, get my $6 movie ticket, and I will pay a little extra for my snacks, but we'll mostly still just sneak them in because at that time, movie theaters were still doing just fine if, half of us snuck in our food. And now that's just not the case anymore. So maybe it was a bit of that, like, hey, we know it commercially did well. We don't think we could do anything with it. Like, is there another book in the series? Is there anyone else to take the story?
That's the craziest thing. The books did continue. Okay, I think there's at least 2 more of them. And there is even a TV version of this called Impulse, which was made in like 2018, had 2 seasons. And it was a YouTube production. But still, they continued to make stuff around this property. It just never came back to cinema. And, I mean, man, like, you have to wonder for a moment, all right? If we removed Hayden Christensen from this movie, and let's say we insert, like, a Ryan Gosling, okay? Abs for days, you could shred cheese on those things. If you put him into this, is this the same result? Because I just don't quite understand, what led to this not continuing. Not like other than having Hayden Christensen in the driver's seat, which, man, I don't want to hate him. I never really wanted to hate Hayden Christensen. Trust me. He's actually in one of my favorite movies called Shattered Glass, which I have mentioned before on this podcast because, the journalist in me, where he does a very convincing job of playing, a nuanced character in that. So it's like, man, was it a question of we're not ready yet? And I can't say anything else. I think it is just a pure question of we weren't ready for this.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, that kind of makes me go to the next step in this conversation is where are we on this movie? So, Mark, you've shown that, like, you don't hate the movie, but is this like something like, is this a meal that you don't hate, and if it was given to you, you're going to eat it, but you probably wouldn't cook it yourself?
See, this is one of those movies for me, Joe, that I am not ashamed to admit that I watch it more often than most people. And even if I was under a lie detector, I would answer it honestly and truthfully. So I'm not hiding from anything here. If anything, Joe, for me, Jumper is kind of like my obsession with over easy eggs. If I can have them that way in a meal, I'm going to order it that way. And Jumper is a guilty pleasure for me. I mean, it's right up there with how like Beer Fest is an anytime watch for me. I mean, hell, dude, if I got time to burn, like I said, these are Hayden Christensen movies outside of Star Wars are 90-minute movies. Disney films are usually not even that long, okay? So if children animation films, are longer, it's like, yeah, you could fit that into your schedule, Joe. So For me, yeah, I do think that this is a film that is worth watching despite being gloriously mid in almost all conceptual ways. And it's odd because I can't be the only person who felt that way, Joe. This movie made over $200 million in 2008. I think that this is a movie that, frankly, is a kind of a dedication to Almost Was. But, I mean, what do you think?
It's, Mark, for a comparison that few people will get, which is okay because few people listen to the podcast, so it's all going to line up fine anyway. I kind of see this movie as like my first proton pack, right? It is not so bad that it's comical. We're like, oh, dude, you know you didn't have the budget, and you know you didn't really try, so it's just funny. And it's not like, whoa, dude, put the time and effort and like the money into this to make it look like it was exactly how it should be. It's like, you tried. You didn't quite get there. And it's this mid area where we can still kind of be mad at it. And it's like it's fine for a bar, walking around on Halloween, but like don't take that thing into the daylight. And that's kind of where I am with this. It has its moments for me that I enjoy. I do enjoy that this has like actually like when it comes to like a film that will rely on like CGI, it has the perfect like amount of CGI to it, right? In that like the spectacle through most of the movie is just them teleporting, and that's a very nice, easy thing to manipulate where it doesn't look out of place, even for this like early, well, I guess like late 2000s, almost in the 2010 area, where a lot of people just really butchered the amount of CGI they put into a movie. And like the biggest spectacle eventually comes with a building. And even then, that didn't look horrible. It didn't look awful. So like it would do that well. And I do love a good like, destination movie, because this movie does that really fun where it's taking you to you're in New York City after you were in like the Detroit area, and then after that you're in London, then you're in Tokyo, then you're in Egypt, and you're a bit of everywhere, which is kind of fun too, because again, for a good chunk of I don't know guys, Americans who maybe don't have the means to leave the country, or you're still young and you haven't been able to leave the country yet, it's fun to be able to see a movie that's taking place in all these different areas. So
not to mention
that's always fun.
So Joe, for once we actually get an action movie that balances very convincing CGI. We actually have practical effects. We've got real life locations. As you mentioned, when they pulled in the building, they actually made like an underwater structure with that apartment building sunk into it. So I mean, there was some dedication to this. Makes me feel bad, very bad,
a little bit. And I mean, I'm gonna bring it back to my other analogy. I still wore that proton pack out in the day, man. So will I watch this movie? Absolutely. So if someone's like, I want to watch Jumper, I'm not gonna be like, you fucking idiot. Let's pick something different. They're like, yeah, sure. Am I going to pick Jumper? Probably not.
See, now
I won't have a bad time watching it, but I won't. I'll watch other things first.
See, and that's what the poster should have said to get people to watch this movie. Hey, you fucking idiot! Watch Jumper. But hey, with that, we do thank you for listening to the Digital Dissection Podcast. If you like this episode, you can find all seasons of the show on YouTube, as well as audio-only versions on your favorite podcasting services.
Your support has gone an incredibly long way, but if you can share or like this content, we greatly appreciate it, as it helps us get noticed across our many, many platforms. And as always, pop culture nerds, we appreciate you for joining us. And until next time, keep on dissecting.